everyone, my name is Manon the Reaper. I am the Editor-in-Chief of Film Inquiry, and today I'm going to talk a little about my journey into screenwriting. So for those of you who follow me on social media, you may have noticed that I mentioned that I submitted my script to the Screencraft Fellowship contest, which is a really big screenwriting contest, and that was kind of my deadline for finishing a full script and just get it over and done with. So I'll start at the beginning because my journey into screenwriting wasn't really an easy one, I guess. I knew I always wanted to be a writer, and I had already started writing at a very early age. I think I was writing my first little bits and pieces of writing when I was very little. But as I grew up, I never quite finished any project at all. So I had like a ton of half-written, half-finished, half-nothing really projects, and most of them were novels, short stories, all in novel style. So I just had a lot of unfinished projects, and it was always pretty frustrating to me because I wanted to be a writer so bad. I always had plenty of ideas, but I just could never really bring them to a completed story. And over the years I just read about writing a lot. I even wrote about writing for a couple of years. It was fun, but it was also just very frustrating. So I did learn a lot during those years, but it wasn't until late 2015 that I started to explore screenwriting. So it's like my actual journey into screenwriting is much more recent. Writing I've been doing like my entire life, but screenwriting, yeah, I didn't seriously start to think of doing it until late 2015. And even then, it started out as an idea for a novel. So the reason I chose to go into screenwriting is, well, first of all, I love movies. I run a movie website. I watch movies every day, so even though I do read novels every day as well, but like movies are my biggest passion. I love movies, so it was a bit of a facepalm really, like why didn't I go into script writing any sooner? So when I finally decided to go into screenwriting, I started to explore that a little, and I read some scripts and started reading some blogs, and I started listening to the Script Notes podcast. I actually already had a book on screenwriting, which before I'd used for novel writing purposes actually, so that was kind of ironic. So the next step was outlining my idea, which I did pretty much in the first 3 to 4 months of 2016. It took me a little bit. I outlined my entire story, and I outlined my characters, and I got to know my main character quite closely, if you will, like to the extent that you can get to know a fictional character, but anyway. So when I finished my outline, I felt like I didn't quite know where to get started. Like, I knew to a certain extent where I wanted my script to start, where and when I wanted certain beats to happen, how I wanted the story to unfold, what the ending was gonna be. But when I started to write those first few pages, I felt so daunted. So whenever I would write a little bit, like the pressure that the whole concept of having to write this entire script, I just felt like as soon as I started to write that I'd have to finish this script within a day. I don't know how or why I felt like that, but that's just always the way it seemed to me. Obviously it's not true. You don't have to finish your script in one day, that's insane. But I'm kind of an impatient person, I guess. I guess you could say. I just wanted to finish the thing, and because I was so impatient and put the pressure on myself so much, I just felt very demotivated to actually write, so I just never wrote. So that kind of negative spiral, negative energy, whatever you would call it, it lasted for quite a while. Like, so between the first few months of 2016 and November, I barely wrote anything. It was constantly on my mind, and it was kind of like a festering thing, like you need to write this, but just couldn't really find the energy for it, or the mind space, I guess. Yeah. So what happened in November, actually in October, just a little bit before November, National Novel Writing Month was coming up, which always takes place in November, and I had already tried to participate in that a few times before, but I always found the 50,000 words a month, that is their goal, always to be really high. If you don't have anything to do with your life, then maybe you could do it, but if you have like a busy daily life, like I was studying back in the day, I just couldn't manage like 1,600 words a day. Like if you miss one day, it's just, you're already behind so much, it's not doable anymore. But I kind of realized that if I were to like adapt NaNoWriMo's goals and rules to my screenwriting needs, that I could pretty much maybe try to write an entire script, or at least 90 pages in 30 days. So that's what I did. I set the goal of writing 3 pages per day every day of November. And 3 pages turned out to be pretty doable, and I finished at November 30th. And I had written 130 pages. I had already written 30 pages before I started NaNoWriMo, and I wrote actually a little bit more than 90 pages within that time frame. And I have to say, like, November was such a busy month for me. I was traveling for 2 weeks. I had lots of stuff going on for a film inquiry, and I was building websites because that's what I do as well. So it was just pretty crazy, but I still did it. Like, I was writing in bed some nights. Like, I was actually taking my laptop to bed just because I had to make that goal. But 3 pages isn't much. Like, write some dialogue, you have some white space, and you have some scene description. It's 3 pages just isn't much in screenwriting terms. So it was pretty doable, and I made it. So I was pretty happy, I was surprised, I was pleased. I had some wine to celebrate. But then of course you have to edit, and the editing process was a bit of a thing on its own, because I was actually heading out on vacation on the 15th of December. So what I wanted to do is edit as much as possible as I could before that time. I didn't want it to be perfect, and that was totally fine. I just wanted to read the script through quite a couple of times to make sure that there weren't any glaring mistakes or any glaring flow issues or any glaring plot issues or whatever, that I was happy with my characters the way that I put them on paper within November. And then I sent out my script, this pretty still rough draft. I sent it out to a couple of friends of mine, some people with some filmmaking experience. So in the first week of January I had already received quite a bit of feedback, and the feedback thankfully was mostly positive, but there were a lot of positive criticism. So lots of stuff that I could use to improve my script, and I was very happy to get their criticism because I know that they wanted to help me make this better and the best it could be for the contest as well as just in general. So again, I took all their feedback and I started editing again and went through my script again and again, and still went through it again and actually made quite a few major changes to some scenes. And then there was January 15th, and it came so quick. It was a little insane. Like, I had 10 days to process all the feedback and to do everything, but I managed and I handed it in on January 15th. So that's basically what happened, and what I took away from that is that if I can manage this, anyone can. Like, sure, you need to plan, and the planning thing turned out to be the most crucial thing of this all. Like I had my daily goal trackers, and I used my journal to keep track of that, and I just had to be pretty strict and have some discipline. But in the end, it just turned out that 3 pages a day is just pretty doable, you know? Anyway, so another question I got was what software I used. Like, I have tried quite a bit of software. I'm one of those people who kind of procrastinates just by trying tons of different kinds of software all the time. So I had downloaded these programs and tried all the trials and whatever, but I remembered that I had bought Scrivener like years and years ago because I used it to write my master thesis and some other stuff as well, and back in my novel writing days I used it. So it turned out that Scrivener has a pretty nifty screenwriting template tool kind of thing as well. So that's what I ended up using, and it has some flaws, but what I really love about Scrivener in particular is their corkboard function. So I could just arrange my scenes and arrange them around if I had to, and it just put my script into a very visual order, I guess. So that's what I ended up using, and I really love Scriveners, and like you can use it for any kind of writing that you do. So I can definitely recommend Scrivener. Like I've tried Writer Duet as well, but it's an online app, and for me I just need to have something that's completely distraction free, and as soon as I open my browser it's like emails, Twitter, Facebook, everything, too much. So I get distracted and I end up not writing at all. So for me, an online app is just not really what I'm looking for. But if you're the type who can handle distractions like that, like good on you, but not for me. But if you do like that, it's a pretty good one as well. Like if it weren't an online app, I think maybe the paid one you can use offline as well. But that just wasn't for me. So what's next? Like my plan, of course, is to win this contest, even though like probably 10,000 people are participating, but I have my dreams. Keeping my fingers crossed anyway for that one. But in the meantime, like I'm not putting all my money on this contest. I'm also reaching out to some people I know and see if anyone's interested in this story. It's a period drama. It's set in Victorian era asylum in New England. It features a strong, educated female lead. It covers a lot of themes, like, well, it's set in an asylum, so it's a lot about insanity and how it distinguishes between the two. And because of the era, there's a lot about sexism and racism as well. And what was also my aim is that even though this story is set in 19th century Massachusetts, there are so many allegories and metaphors for what situations are like now. And those are some things that I explored within this story, and I think it worked out pretty well. So I'm definitely looking to get this out there and see if there's anyone interested. Like, I know that period pieces are very expensive films to do, so that's kind of a thing. But, you know, I'm having fun, and right now this isn't my day job. It's mostly just still a hobby, but it would be fun if it could be my day job, you know? So that's my story in a nutshell, how I got to finish my first script. I'd love to explore this a little more, and if you have any questions at all, I'd love to help people and talk about screenwriting, and if there's anything I can do or tell you or share, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you later.